The transform tool in Photoshop is a very powerful tool which you can use to scale, rotate, skew, distort, adjust the perspective of your image, text or object in Photoshop. And equally, you can use this transform tool to warp your image into whatever shape that you want. And also, you can use it to flip your image, object or text horizontally or vertically. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you exactly how each and every function of this transform tool works. Okay, let's go to the very first example. Let's assume that you draw a shape like this and you want to resize this shape. Now what you can do is to click on the move tool and click at the edge of your object or shape, and then you click and reduce. You notice that as I am reducing, the reduction is not done proportionately. The reason for this is that I have not enabled this chain icon up here. This chain icon, when enabled, ensures that any adjustments you're making on your shape or text or whatever image you're working on is done proportionately. So I have activated that now, and you see no matter how I try to reduce this or increase it, it works proportionately. Another way to do this without necessarily activating this button up here is to hold the shift key. Once you hold the shift key and you click on any spot, as you increase and reduce, you see the increments and reductions are done proportionately. This equally works perfectly for text layers. So let's try a text layer for this example. Maybe I type in something like this, hello, and to modify the size of this text, I can just click here and increase, and I reduce. So with text, you have to be very careful with text, because when texts are stretched, they don't appear nice at all. So when working with text, you want to ensure that this button up here is checked, so that any increment or reduction will be done proportionately. So that is it for the scale tool. Okay, now the next tool I want to work with is the rotate. So you may want to rotate your image. Normally, once you create a shape in Photoshop and you move your move tool to the edge of that shape, when this double-headed arrow appears, it means that at that point you can rotate the shape. So I just need to click here and I rotate to whatever angle I want. So to be precise in the way you rotate, it's advisable to fit in the degree of rotation you want here. Maybe I want to rotate this thing to 45 degrees. I just need to type 45 degrees up there, and I can be sure that this thing has been rotated to exactly 45 degrees. Same, I can rotate, I can change it to rotate anti-clockwise by putting a negative value up there, negative 45. Sorry, you see it rotates the other way round. So that is how you rotate a shape in Photoshop. Now, assuming that we want to skew an image. To skew an image, this is how an image is being skewed. This skew effect distorts your image in a way. So you really need to know exactly what you want to do before applying a skew effect to your image. So in skewing, you can modify parts of the image, like you can click and adjust the image from different points. So this is how you skew an image. So this may not look practical, may not look applicable right now, because we might not know exactly what we want to use this for. But I mostly use the skew effect when I want to apply, say, a shadow to my image. Let's say now I want this floor to be yellow in color. All I need to do is to skew this so that this fits exactly, it aligns exactly with the floor. And once that is done, I just click on OK, and now my floor looks like this, yellow. You see that it's not as perfect as you may want it to be, but it actually does a pretty good job. So let's look at the next tool. The next tool in our list is the perspective tool. Now the perspective tool is a very important tool in Photoshop, and as a professional designer or would be professional designer, you need to understand how perspective works. Let's say we want to type welcome here and home here. So let me type the first text, home. When you type home here, and as we've learned, you can scale it up. I hold my shift button and I scale it up. You see it's looking distorted instead because I had already activated this button. So in scaling this up, I will not hold the shift button again. Holding the shift button when this button is activated here deactivates this one. So all I need to do now is just to click and increase this button here, and that is my home. Okay, now this home here matches the perspective of this blue wall here 100%. It matches the perspective. But assuming that I wanted to write welcome on this other wall this way, okay, let me just type in the welcome text that we are going to be using for this example. Welcome, modify my color to yellow. Okay. Maybe I increase the size to say 600. Okay, now when I bring my welcome here, you see it cannot fit the perspective of this wall. Assume that I even reduce it in size to be something like this. You see it doesn't still match the perspective of this wall. It's like it's lining directly opposite, like 90 degrees against this wall. So I want to make this seem like it was actually placed on this wall, actually written on this wall. The tool I'm going to use here is the perspective tool. So what do? I just need to press Ctrl T to activate my transform tool, right click, and then I select the perspective option. But now note, when selecting the perspective option here for a text tool, the perspective option cannot be activated because the perspective tool doesn't work with text. So what we are going to do now is to rasterize this area, meaning we are converting this area from a text to a normal pixel layer. So what I'm going to do is right click and I click on rasterize type, and I click on that. This is already converted now into a pixel layer, and note you cannot come back and edit this text anymore. This is no more a text layer that you can double click on and edit it. So before you make this step of converting your type into a raster layer, ensure that your spelling is correct and you will not need to change this. Okay, that done, I right click this time around after activating my transform by pressing Ctrl T or going up to edit and selecting transform. I can activate perspective. Now once perspective is activated, now I can click on this button down here, this bottom part, and adjust. You see, as I adjust, it's already appearing like this text was actually written on this wall. Do you see? Now this is different from what we had from the beginning, when the text was just like looking like the home text, which was just brought this way. You now see that the home text and this, they now look very different. They are both on two different perspectives. So I can further add another effect on this by creating a drop shadow effect on my window, on this welcome button. You now see it appears like the welcome was actually on that wall. So for this other effect that I just applied here under the layer styles, we are going to look at this detailing in other videos. Okay, now let's assume that you have the need to flip your text horizontally or an object horizontally. This is what you are going to do. This might not really be applicable for this text, because if you flip it horizontally like this, it's going to look somehow odd. For instance, if I flip this horizontally, you see it's opposite, it's seeming opposite. So let me just import an image which we can use to apply this effect on, so that we can see exactly what I'm saying. Okay, with this image imported, I just need to unlock this layer so that I'm free to modify it. Now what I do to activate my transform is Ctrl T, and then I flip this horizontal by clicking here. When I click here, this is what happens. You see, he now appears, it's like his we now see a mirror image of this same object, this same person or shape that you have. Assuming this was a shape, assuming this was an object, you will now have a mirror image of your shape or your object. That is how you do it. Or I want to flip him vertically. When I click on flip vertical, this is exactly what you have. Instead of going to and struggling to rotate him round and round and round, all I need to do is, once the picture is at this position, all I need to do is just to click flip vertical, and we will have it looking this way. So those are the basic functions within the transform tool which you can use. Those are the basic functions. I think we haven't talked about the warp, have we? We haven't talked about the warp. Okay, let's say we want to warp this image. Let's say we want to warp this image. Let it appear like this home text was applied on this floor. What we are going to do is, at this point, we will convert this into a raster type. Then we press Ctrl T, or we come to edit, go to transform, and then we go to warp. Once you click on warp, you see that anchor points have been created on your image layer. So from here you can now modify your shape into whatever form you want. You now see. So you can use this to create cool effects. Yeah, this can be a cool text effect for a title you are working on. So that is what the warp tool actually does in Photoshop. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like, click on the share button, subscribe to my channel so you can remain updated with the new videos that I'll be producing.